I was gonna send one to you. Grab both, and I was like, oh, that works. Okay. Wherever I put my pencil, there it is. Okay. 6.4 applications for systems of equation, and these are the notes. Okay. So number 1, 11 times one number is 8 more than 8 times another number. The first number minus 4 is half the second number. Find the numbers. Okay, so on step 1, or sorry, on question number 1, all the steps are going to be listed out for you. If you look at the next questions, the steps are not listed, but the spaces are still there. So step 1, 2, 3, and 4 are typed out for you already, okay, or listed already for you, but they will not be listed on the following questions. So will not require as much work as you go on. So step 1 is to identify the 2 variables and state what they represent. Now, we've done variables before, so make sure when you pick variables, you can pick X and Y the whole way through, or you can pick variables based on what you're looking for. Okay, it does not matter. The 2 rules are that you should not use O or I, because I is imaginary and O looks like a 0. So don't use those letters. You can literally use any other letters you want. When you define your variables, you need to define your variables detailed, okay? You need to have something quantifying it, okay? So certain numbers already have a quantity to them. So like number or temperature, those already have a quantifying definition with them, right? Temperature means a number, okay? But if I said shoe, that doesn't tell me anything. So you want number of shoes, you want color of shoes. What do you mean about shoes? Okay, so you need to have something quantifying about your word, okay? In this case, since we're just finding numbers, there's not going to be very much detail on these first ones. Now, as far as variables, I'm fine to do X and Y the whole way through, or you can pick different variables. We'll kind of go as we do. So we'll go ahead and do X and Y since it's just basic numbers. And literally what it says in the story is what I'm going to use. So it says, first one says one number. So we're going to use a number as my first definition. And the next time it mentions it is another number, okay, or the second number. You can use either way. You can say first number, second number. You can say a number, another number, other number. Since it didn't really describe it as first and second the whole way through, it doesn't really matter. This one's a little less specific as far as how you have to list it because they're just numbers in general, okay? Typically, obviously, our variables are a little bit more specific. Okay, and again, if you are writing this freehand, okay, I'm trying to delay a little bit on this first one because I know there's more writing for you to do. Okay, but also remember that I'll record the notes, or the notes are recorded and you can watch it again. All right, step 2, set up the systems of equations. So we need to come up with the equations we're going to be working with. So based on our first equation or first sentence, we'll have our first equation. So we have 11 times one number. So what would be my first part of my equation? 11x, right? Then it says is. What does is mean in reference to equations? Is means equal, good. Is always means equal. Nine more than, what would 9 more than be? So would it be plus 9 or 9 plus? Does it really matter? Not necessarily, but in the way that it's read, 9 more than would be 9 plus. Okay, or you can write the second part and then put plus 9. Either way, addition is commutative, so you can do it either order. Obviously, if it was less than, that's important in the order. 9 more than 8 times another number. Will be this last part. 8y. Good. Okay, good. Now let's look at the second sentence for the second equation. The first number minus 4, what would that be? X minus 4 is, which means equal, half the second number. So y divided by 2 is one way, but it does say, what's it? You can also say 1/2 of y. Okay, both of them work, but we've talked a lot about using your coefficients more rather than writing something as dividing. Okay. Ooh. That reminds me of like a couple years ago, I was teaching new freshmen the area of a triangle being half base times height, and they were like, no, it's base times height divided by 2. And I'm like, that's the same thing. But normally people say half the base times height, not base times height divided by 2. It means the same thing, but if you Google it, it's definitely going to say half the base times height. All right. I'm not sure. I'm getting a couple people typing numbers back to me, but we haven't found any numbers yet. So I'm trying to figure out where the numbers are coming from as far as what I'm seeing back. Okay, anyways, step 3, solve your systems using the method specified for each problem. For numbers, for number 1, it is identified to do the substitution method, okay? So on your homework on the notes, it'll either say substitution method, elimination method, or you may pick a method, okay? Most likely aren't going to pick graphing, but you'll probably pick one of the substitution or elimination. So if it specifies, you must use that method because again, I need to be able to see that you can complete that method, okay? If it says you pick, choose which one you feel more comfortable with, okay? So substitution method is where we solve for a variable and substitute into the other equation, okay? With the information we have here, which equation would make more sense to manipulate?
The second one.
For substitution method, good. Yeah, the second one makes the most sense because it has a single variable already, okay? I don't have to divide, multiply, or anything, okay? However, I do need to add or subtract. So what would x equal? How would I isolate x? X would equal
1/2 y plus 4.
that someone typed it in there as well. And I believe you said it. It was just so quiet that I was trying to, I was like, what did you say? All right, 1/2 y plus 4. So we're going to substitute that into the first equation for x. So that means we're going to have 11 times 1/2 y plus 4 equals 9 plus 8y. Okay, so again, we substitute in half y plus 4 in for x for the first equation. Now we got to simplify. Now keep your fractions. 11 times 1/2 would be 11 halves plus 44. Okay, now it's just a basic multi-step problem that you learned in Algebra 1. So what would we do first? What would make subtract the 8 to the other side. So I would look at what we're going to look. So thinking about 11 halves, what would that be as a decimal? What's 11 halves as a decimal? 5.5. So would we rather subtract the smaller or the bigger number? The smaller number. So typically people want to go to the 8 because they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with the fraction, but then we'd also have to deal with the negative as well. So is it wrong to do it that way? No, but if you don't have to work with negatives or remember negatives, that's always helpful as well. So if we subtract 11 halves over, what would that simplify to? What's 8 minus 11 halves, or 8 minus 5 halves? Or 5 halves, I meant 5.5. as a fraction. What? 5/2, good. Okay, you're always able to use your calculator, so use it to its advantage. Right? I just spent the last hour reminding my new freshmen how to simplify, because they don't have the fancy calculators that just do it for you. We had to talk about simplifying, but you guys have the fraction button on your nice, beautiful calculator, so saves you guys a lot of work. Then we subtract 9, so it would be, we got 6 problems to do today, so I need some basic math help here, guys. I know the answers, but I want to make sure you guys do.
5.
35, thank you. Okay, when we have a fraction with a variable, what do we do to get it to the other side? We can divide, but typically
Multiply
we
by the reciprocal.
multiply by the reciprocal. Which leaves us with
14.
14. If you are in person and don't have your calculator out, please get that out. You guys should be working. If you don't have one, you can borrow one from my library of calculators up here. Okay. Virtual kiddos, I expect that you are doing this as well. Please do not just wait till we share the answers. Okay, now that we have 14, we're going to substitute it back in. Okay, it doesn't matter which one you substitute it back into. So if I have x minus 4 equals half of 14, half of 14 is
7.
7, so therefore x is
11.
11. Okay, so we have x and we have y. All right, last step is to state your final answer. Now, because we're dealing with word problems, we are not going to state it as an ordered pair. We're going to state it with a whole statement, okay? So when we have the statement, it's not just x and y. What you're going to do is you're going to take your definitions from the first step and you're going to rewrite them at the bottom. So x equals a number, but rather than writing x the second time, we're going to write a number, because that was my first definition. And since x equals 11, so a number is 11. And then my second definition was another number, or you could have said second number. And that is 14. Okay, and those are your 4 steps to solving application problems. Identify your variables, create your equations, solve, and then state your answer. Now, those 4 steps will not be written on any following questions after this point. It's just the blanks are provided for you, okay? What? Okay. I don't have any big ones. I just have the little ones, so. Okay. Better than nothing, I guess. All right, number 2. Now, again, if you are writing this all by hand, you do not need to write all the information, okay? I'm going to read it out, and then we're going to talk about what's the most important parts. Okay, a music store offers piano lessons at a discount. The cost for 6 lessons and a one-time fee is $300, or 12 lessons and a one-time fee is $480. What is the cost of each lesson and the one-time fee? Now, obviously, it's great to know that a music store is offering piano lessons at a discount, but is that really necessary for the problem itself? Not really. Really, the important parts are the numbers and the question. All right, so we definitely need to know what's going on with the lessons and the one-time fee, and we need to know what the question is. Okay? And obviously, we are doing the method of choice, which is elimination. Okay, so looking at my variables, the best way to know what your variables should be is based on your question, okay? And the question is, what is the cost of each lesson and a one-time fee? So therefore, my variables are the cost of a lesson and the cost of a one-time fee. Now, again, you should not just put lesson and one-time fee because there's nothing quantitative about that information. Cost of, price of, either of those phrases would work. Now, as far as variables, you guys want to stick with X and Y, you guys want to get creative. Doesn't bother me either way. X and Y sounds great. Okay, so how do we know which one is X and which one's Y? Typically, it doesn't matter, but normally you'll just go with whatever order was provided to you. So the first thing it mentions was the lessons, so therefore cost of or price of one lesson or one piano lesson. Okay. Cost of, price of, one lesson, one piano lesson, any of that would work. What would not work is if you just put lesson, okay? Y, okay, cost of, price of, one-time fee. Okay, again, what would not work would be saying fee or one-time fee, okay? Again, we need something quantitative about it, so cost of, price of, either are great phrases to use. Okay, now we gotta come up with our equations. Okay, as you can tell, there's still things labeled in here for you. Okay, it's just not specifically saying this is your step, this is your step, this is your step. Okay, so equation 1. The cost of 6 lessons and a one-time fee is $300. Cost of 6 lessons and a one-time fee is $300. Someone said 6x. Yep, 6x works. What else do we need? Plus y equals 300. Great job, Oliver. All right, 6x plus y equals 300. Great job. How about that second equation? 12 lessons and a one-time fee is $480. 12 lessons and a one-time fee is $480. Good, 12x plus y equals 480. Okay, once we've filled in that information, now we're going to move over to our space where it says show work below. Okay, as always, again, if you do not have the work to justify your answers, if you do not have the work based on the provided method, that creates issues. Okay, so please pay attention to that. All right, so I'm going to simply just write my equations again, and we're going to discuss what we should do to eliminate. Okay, now obviously in this case, one makes more sense to eliminate than the other. Which variable would make sense? Our y variable. Okay, now does it matter which one we use to manipulate? Is one going to be easier than the other to manipulate?
Yeah.
Maybe the first one. Okay, but aren't they both y's? So in reality, there's not going to be much difference. Okay, what do we need to manipulate to either equation? What?
Make it negative.
Make it negative, right? So we need to multiply by -1, okay? Now, does it matter if you multiply by -1 or someone said -2? That would be if we're doing x, which you can do x if you want to, but y would make more sense because they're singular, but x works just as easy. But if we were going to multiply by for y, okay, and multiply the top one by -1, we would then get -6x minus y equals -300. And the second one doesn't need any manipulating. And there I'm able to combine like terms or add vertically. So what am I left with when I add vertically at that point? X equals 180, yes. Which we would divide, and x would equal 30, good. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and substitute that back in to solve for y. It does not matter which one you solve it or substitute it in for, as long as you solve for y. I turned on the heater in this room and now it feels too hot. Are you guys okay over there in the corner? Okay, I can turn it back down. It was at like 71 and there was no one in here at the second hour and it felt freezing. So I moved it up, but now since kids have been in here, it seems much hotter. But it also is getting warmer outside, so. And I could probably take off my hat, but yeah, I'll stay I feel like I always look like one of Snow White's dwarfs with this hat. All right, so 6 times 3 is, we all said confidently because we know our math facts. 6 times 30 is 180. So therefore, y equals 120. The snow just disappeared. Oh, I haven't looked outside in a sec. This morning I woke up and I like opened the blinds. I'm like, it looks like freaking Christmas outside. I was like, it was so fluffy, all the snow. My son, it was the cutest thing. He like was freaking out about the snow. He's seen it before, but he just seemed mesmerized by it this morning, which was adorable. So answer, again, we don't put X and Y, we put the definition. So cost, you basically copy exactly what you wrote at the top. Okay, cost of first piano lesson, cost of one-time fee. Okay, I always have students say, well, why do I have to write it twice? Because you do. We're keeping our stuff organized. That's step 1. This is step 4. Sometimes you have to rewrite things within your steps. Very common in IB that you have to rewrite information in different places. Okay, so it's not to torture you by making you write something that'll take you 10 seconds off your life. Okay, it's to keep things organized. All right, cost of a one-time piano, or sorry, cost of the one piano lesson, let me correct myself, was X, and X was 30. And then Y was 120. Okay, is there anything else we need on this answer? We should probably put dollar signs, that is correct. Now, why didn't we do it on number 1? Okay, they're just numbers, right? Numbers don't need labels, but in the instructions, it does say labels or units on your answers. Now, if they're just a number, you don't actually have a unit, okay? Okay, that's really the only variable that wouldn't have some kind of unit on it. Any other variable will most likely have it in the definition, okay? But money always is there. Now, obviously, we're assuming US dollars based on the dollar sign, okay? I could throw in like Australian dollars if I wanted to, but not that important. Okay, number 3. Okay, this again is a longer word problem. You don't need to write every single word down if you're doing this by hand. All right, the drama club at NOMS sells hot chocolate and coffee at the high school football games. At the last game, they had sales of $200. They need to keep track of how many types of drinks was sold so that they can make predictions for future sales. Monica knows that they used 275 cups that night. If the hot chocolate sells for 75 cents and the coffee sells for 50 cents, how much of each type of drink was sold? And we're using the substitution method. Okay. Now, just because I always like getting to know you guys, who does not like coffee in here? Anyone not like coffee? You're my people. My people, virtual kids. Anyone not like coffee?
I don't like coffee.
I don't like coffee, yeah. I never have liked coffee. My parents never really drank coffee ever. I've never liked coffee. When I was younger, I couldn't even walk down the coffee aisle because I just hated the smell of it. I still don't like the smell, but I'm not as like extra in the sense that I won't even like walk down the aisle. But yeah, I'm the hot chocolate person. I always feel like a 2-year-old when I'm like, oh, I'll take a hot chocolate. But hot chocolate's good. Okay, so what are we trying to figure out? What do we think the variables are gonna be based on? What do we think?
Number of hot chocolate sold and number of coffee sold.
Great job. So again, we're looking at how much of each type is sold. So we need to know the number of cups per type. Great job. Okay, so if we're gonna stick with the X and Y, makes things easy. Okay, number of cups of hot chocolate sold. Number of cups of coffee. Yep. I did that yesterday. I tried to spell coefficient versus coffee. Coffee. Okay, now let's look about those equations. This one's a little bit harder because it's not just a direct sentence of information. We have numbers in various places. So we have sales of 200. We have 275 cups. We have 75 cents for hot chocolate, and we have coffee for 50 cents. We have 4 different places of numbers. Nothing is one single sentence. So we're trying to figure out how many type of each drink was sold. So anyone have an idea of what one of the equations could possibly be? Phoenix?
0.5x plus 0.75
Y. Yes, but you actually, did you do hot chocolate as your X or did you do coffee as your X?
Oh, I got the variables.
Okay, so that's fine. So the hardest part with these types of problems is you, for purposes of in-class notes, you do need to make sure you follow whatever I'm doing for as far as variables. When you said it, I figured you probably switched the variables on your page, which is totally fine. But obviously that would be confusing if we said it out loud here. So if you switch your variables on your homework, 9 times out of 10, it's not a difficult, or it's not a bad thing. It's really more important with graphing. If you were to do one, like in algebra when we did them, if you remember back when we did this lesson in algebra 1, if you switch the variables, then sometimes your equations wouldn't come out nicely. So that is true based on my variables. That would be 0.75x because it's 75 cents for a cup of hot chocolate plus 50 cents for a cup of coffee equals $200. Okay. Now you can either put 0.75 or you can just put 0.75, but you definitely need a decimal. Okay. If you don't do a decimal, then you're saying it's $75 for a cup of coffee or $75 for hot chocolate and $50 for coffee. Okay. So that equation makes up the information for 3 of the pieces. How are we going to use the 275? Let's see if someone else can help me out on this one. Okay, good. Thank you, Andrew. X plus Y equals 275. Plus Y equals 275. Okay, so we're going to do substitution method. Okay, looking at my 2 equations, which one makes more sense to manipulate? What? X, yeah, X makes sense in my second equation. Okay, you could do X or you could do Y. Either one's going to make sense, right? Either way, you're subtracting one of the variables to the other side. So if we're going to solve for X, which is totally fine, what would that expression be on the right side? If I isolated X in my second equation, what would it be? Anyone said minus Y plus 275? Sounds great. Okay, you could also say 275 minus Y. Either way would work, right? All we did here was subtract Y to the right side. Do we all understand where that's coming from? Okay. I understand if you guys are just like, it's a day, it's a snowy day, I get it. But if we're all being silent, it makes me feel like no one knows what we're doing versus just not wanting to answer. So please, 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 let's stay active. Okay, so now we're going to substitute negative Y plus 275 into the other equation. Okay, you are going to have decimals in this, so it is okay to keep decimals. You do not need to turn your answers into fractions. If you're not working with money, you need to keep your fractions. Okay, so we have 0.75 times negative y plus 275 plus 0.50y equals 200. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here and let you guys solve that the rest of the way out. Virtual kids, please type in your answer once you have an answer. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to figure this out. Shouldn't take much more than 3 minutes to substitute and solve. If you have questions, let me know. Okay, but again, I will be checking in-person kiddos in about 3 minutes, and virtual kids, I need you to type your answer once you have it. If you are virtual, that's how I'm making sure you're paying attention and taking attendance. Okay. Okay, again, virtual kiddos, please make sure you type in what you get for your answer. I'm going to go walk around real quick. Once I get back, you should have enough time. If you've only gotten one of the variables so far, at least type that, okay? Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, remember you need to be answering if you are virtual, even if you make a mistake. That's better than not responding at all. Okay, so let's look what we should have had. So first we need to distribute the 75. So we have negative 0.75 y plus 206.25 plus 0.50 y equals 200. Combine like terms, we get negative 0.25 y. Subtract. And we get negative 6.25, which when dividing y would equal 25. Okay, and then we go back to substitute in. I would suggest substituting in the easier equation. So x plus 25 is 275. It means x equals 250, which means the high school agrees with us that hot chocolate is superior. And then we rewrite what we wrote at the top with our answers. Yep. Yep. Okay, and in this case, we wouldn't necessarily have a label because it already labels it within the variable itself, the numbers of cup of coffee. So you don't need to put 250 cups since it already talked about the number of cups. Okay, questions or concerns? Most people did get these answers. A couple of people did not. Okay, if you did not get these answers, do we see where your mistake was made? Again, if you are virtual, I will do the best I can, but in most cases, in problems like this, it's easier if you just take a picture and send it to me and I can help you figure out where the issue is if you can't find it on your own. Any questions or concerns about this one? If you made a mistake, do we see where we made our mistakes? Okay, let's move on to number 4 then. Okay, number 4, Amy wants to get some granola bars. At Kroger, you can get 6 strawberry and 4 cherry together for $6.90. And at Sam's Club, you can get 5 strawberry and 9 cherry for $9.15. How much is each type of granola bar individually? Elimination method. Okay, so based on the question, how much is each type of granola bar? What should our variables be? I said that weird. Variables. What should our variables be? What are we worried about?
The cost of the strawberry and the cherry.
Great. Cost of strawberry and cost of cherry. Or price of, either works. Okay, good job. Cost of strawberry granola bar, cost of cherry granola bar. Okay, how about those equations? What are those equations? Luis, what do you think is one? Good, 6x plus 4y equals 690. And therefore the second one should be, Jason, what do you think the second one should be? Awesome. Okay, now you are going to do the elimination method. Is either one going to be necessarily easier than the other to eliminate? Not really, right? They're all positive numbers, 6, 5, 4, and 9. Neither of them are a factor of the other. So that just simply means you're going to have to multiply by the opposite variable, and one being positive, one being negative. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite my equations over here. Okay, for purposes of being consistent on notes, let's go ahead and decide which one we're going to eliminate, and then I'll let you guys go. If you've already started, that's totally fine. Which variable do we want to eliminate, x or y? Let's go with x again, okay? So therefore, what do we want to multiply on top? Awesome. Top -5, bottom +6. Sounds great. Okay, so for consistency reasons, this is the work I will show. If you did something else, totally fine. Your answer should still be the same. And I'll let you go from here and keep practicing those skills. Again, if you are virtual, I want you to type your answer in so that I know that you're actively participating. Even if you make a mistake, that's totally fine. I'd rather know so I know who's doing right and who needs some extra help. Be careful with your decimals. Careful with everything. Multiplying, adding, all that jazz. If you get negative answers, 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be an answer that makes sense, right? If you get an answer that says the granola bar is $15, probably doesn't make sense, right? So make sure your numbers make sense. Okay? If they don't, double check your work. If they are within reason, you're probably right, okay? I'm gonna give you about 2 more minutes and then we're gonna discuss this one. Give you about 2 more minutes. At the end of those 2 minutes, I'm gonna go walk around and check those in person and virtual kids, I'm gonna look at what you have typed. For now, I'm gonna fill in the information so you can see it once I unpause it. Okay, virtual kiddos, please type in what you got for X and Y. If you've only gotten one answer, please tell me at least what that variable is. Okay, if you just type a random number, I don't know if you're solving for X or Y. Okay, but again, please type what you have at least. I'm gonna go check my virtual kiddos, or I'm gonna go check my in-person kiddos. I'll be right back. I told him he'd most likely struggle until I told him what the key was.
I know, I'm like, I'm looking at it like, I have no idea, like, what this might be.
It's okay. For my own indulgence, before I show you the answer, my son is playing with a parachute at daycare today, and it's just like the cutest thing to see all the kids trampling on this big parachute. Parachute day was the best day in gym in elementary. It was my favorite. Did you guys play with parachutes in elementary? Is that still a thing? I don't feel so old when I say that. Okay, this is what your answer should be with the work. Okay, I did have a handful of people that did give me correct information. I did have a handful of people that gave me incorrect information. Okay. Okay. Again, for notes purposes, that's why we stay consistent, so you can see exactly what you messed up on. Okay. Obviously, it's a little bit harder because there's so many different ways, but as long as we're on the same path in notes, it's okay. Yep. Oh, can you fill up the pass? Oh, I just saw it. There you go. Okay, let's try number 5. We got 5 and 6. We're doing good. All right, Ross Labs needs to make 3,200 gallons of a 42% acid solution. They have 36 acid solution and they have 54% acid solution. How many gallons of each type are needed to make a 3,200 gallons of 42% acid solution? Okay. Now, this one, when looking at it originally, definitely looks like, what the heck, what's going on? Okay. But once you do one problem, the rest of them will seem much easier. Okay. So, what are we looking for? What should my variables be based on the question?
Gallons of 36% solution, gallons of 54%.
Sounds good. Okay. X and Y. Be a little bit more specific, I'll say number of gallons of 36% acid solution and number of gallons of 54% acid solution. Okay, good. Gallons of each type, correct. Okay, now let's talk about those equations. Okay, these equations for number 5, they have some similarities to number 3, not a ton, but some, okay, in the sense that the equations are not exactly given to you word for word in a sentence. You kind of have to piece pieces of information together. So what would be one of the equations for number 5? Good, x plus y equals 3,200. That's the easy one. Okay. I don't mean that to be like condescending. That's the one that makes the most sense, right? Not to be mean. I said it and I realized that we sound mean. I was meaning like that's the one that comes naturally. The second one's a little bit harder to understand. Okay. So the second one, thinking about number 3, we had to think about the cost per cup, right? So in this case, we have to think about the percent per acid solution, right? Now, when we use percentages in an equation, what do we have to turn them into? We turn them into decimals. So because X is the number of gallons of 36% acid solution, we're going to want 0.36 times X, right? For Y, we're going to want 0.54. The question is, what does that equal? That's the hard part. What does it equal?
0.42.
Not 0.40. It's not only 0.42. It's
134.
It's 0.42 times 3,200. That's the hard part. That's the one thing that everyone's always gets to that point and they're like, where did this come? So because you want 42% of 3,200 gallons, okay? Just like this, you want 36% of a number of gallons, same concept. So I want 42% of 3,200 gallons. Now, when you write your equation, you want to leave it like this, okay? I want to see where your numbers are coming from. Once you actually go into the solving method, that's when you would actually write, what does that equal? Okay. Okay. Now on number 5 and 6, because we're dealing with percentages, these will not always work out nice and crystal clear. So these will be approximate answers. So you'll go ahead and round to the nearest whole answer on number 5. So let's go ahead and get started for this one. So makes sense to rearrange the first equation. So do we want to solve for X or Y? Sounds great. We'll solve for X. So then we're going to have negative Y plus 3,200 or 3,200 minus Y. Either way works. So 0.36 times negative Y plus 3,200 plus 0.54Y equals, okay, what's 0.42 times 3,200? What's 0.42 times 3,200? 1,344, yes, correct. So therefore, we're going to distribute. Oop. Plus 1152. And we're going to combine like terms. So 0.54 negative 0.36 will be positive 0.18x, or sorry, y. Equals, I solved for y on my answer key, so I have to redo the numbers, not from what I have written. Equals 192. And divide. Okay, and you're going to get a decimal, but approximately what will y equal? (192) divided by 0.18. Rounded to the nearest whole. 1,067, right? Because 0.6 would round up. Okay, and then you should be able to easily find x at this point. So therefore, x plus 1,067 equals 3,200. So x is approximately 2,133. Ms. Bergman and I always try to make sure things are nice and pretty, but the percentage problems make it a little bit harder to make them nice and pretty. So most likely you will have to round on these types of problems. Questions or concerns for number 5? Okay, last problem for the notes. Number 6, which resembles number 5 in some ways. You have been given $10,000 to invest. Safe investments like certificates of deposits pay about 5.5% interest. The stock market is much riskier, but pays you 12%. If you would like to earn about 10% a year on these investments, how much should you invest in CDs and how much should you invest in stocks? And you get to decide which method you want to complete for this one. Okay, but I will go ahead and help you get started. Okay, so what should our variables be?
Amount of investment in CDs and amount of investment in stocks.
Great, thank you, Annabelle. If I can spell amount and try to combine too many letters. Okay, what is one of my equations going to be? Mauricio, what would one of my equations be? What can one of my equations be? Okay. Let's see, virtual kiddos. Sandra, can you help us out with one of the equations? Okay, thank you, Jesus. Yes, x plus y equals 10,000. Okay, like I said on the last one, that one should hopefully be the more giveaway one. Okay, because we have 10,000 to invest and we have our two different amounts that need to add up to 10,000. Okay, now let's look at those percentages. The percentages are going to be a little bit more difficult. Who can help us out on the percentage one? Phoenix?
0.055 y.
This one for us would be X. Right, the CDs
Oh,
is X.
right.
Yeah.
Plus 0.12 y equals 0.1.
Okay, so again, we got to be careful about those percentages, okay? So similar to number 5, we have to change our percentages into decimals, okay? And when we're talking about percent of a total, we have to multiply that percent of a total. So when we change 5.5% into a decimal, that would be 0.055. When we change 12% into a decimal, that'd be 0.12. And then if we're doing 10% of 10,000, that would be 0.10 times 10,000. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go from here. You may choose substitution, you may choose elimination, you may choose to eliminate X or Y or substitute for X or Y. Be free. Okay, I will check back in about 5 minutes. If you are struggling, please ask questions. Okay, or send me pictures of what you're doing so I can help you find the errors. Be careful about your decimals in this problem. If you forget to do the correct decimal, it'll mess up your numbers. Because we're dealing with money in this problem, go ahead and round to the nearest cent, meaning the 100th cent. Okay, so far I've only gotten one person virtually to give me an answer. Please tell me what you got so far virtually. Rounding to the nearest cent, so to the 100th place. I just approved it. Okay, so because there's so many different ways you could have done this, I'm just going to reveal what the answers are. But because you could have done substitution, you could have done elimination, you could have substitute or eliminated X or Y. Lots of different ways you could have done it. I'm just going to reveal the answer. If you don't get this answer, then you need to make sure that you take a picture and I can help you through that. Okay. Okay, this is what the answer should be. So investments in CDs should be $3,076.92. Amount invested in stocks would be $6,923.08. Any questions or concerns regarding this problem? Wait, and again, like I said, I'm happy to help you figure out where your errors are coming from, but you have to take a picture and send it to me because I'm not going to just be able to know automatically where your error is. Obviously, I need to see what's going on. So the rest of class time is dedicated for your assignment. Your assignment is due Friday. Okay. So as far as class time goes, it looks about 20 minutes before my in-person kiddos lunch start. If you're working through lunch, obviously you have a little bit more time than that. Okay. I have posted the virtual assignment in Google Classroom. I updated like today's thing today and posted it in there. Once the video processes, I will post that as well. If you need to grade a missing assignment, we could probably do 1 or 2 missing assignments if they're like the smaller ones. So if you need to do that, go ahead and put it in the chat, and whoever's first, I will do that one first. And if you don't have any missing assignments, then you are good to go. Now remember, if you are missing assignments, it is your responsibility to make sure those get graded. Okay, please do not turn in like tons of missing assignments and not have them in. Okay, so